On today's show, should the Cleveland Cavaliers be chasing 70 plus wins this year? We'll talk about that. Plus, Evan Mobley hitting and taking a ton of threes for the Cavs lately, and some very promising trends with this team over the last month or so. We'll talk about all that and so much more on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my new Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and your first listen every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube right now, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show, of course, brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Also, Locked On Cavs now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter, your one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Cavs newsletter. The Cleveland Cavaliers, through their first 35 games of the season, are 31-4. They are off to a historic start, as we all know. They've been the best team in basketball. They've been blowing the doors off opponents, and they're on pace to win 73 games. Yes, okay, so maybe I'm working with the math a little bit there, but right now, through 35 games, obviously, there's a long way to go. But in doing the math, this Cavs team is on pace to win 72.54 games. So I was taught in elementary school, if it's 0.5 or higher, it rounds up. So I decided we're rounding this bad boy up from 72.5 wins to 73 wins, because you can't win a half game in the NBA. You can only win full games in the NBA. If you win a quarter, it doesn't count in the standings. What matters is the entire game. So we're rounding that up to 73. They are on pace to tie the all-time wins record for a regular season. We all know who has that record. It's the 2015-16 Golden State Warriors. We'll get to them coming up in just a little bit. I don't think that this should be something the Cavs are chasing, and I don't think it is something that the Cavs are chasing presently. I do think that one of the best things about this Cavs team so far this year is that they've not been chasing wins. They've been winning games, but it's not because they're going all out every single night to find a way to beat the Charlotte Hornets on a Sunday evening. No, they are beating the Charlotte Hornets on a Sunday evening in Cleveland because their process is great, because they are a well-built team, because they're doing all the things correctly, because they're not taking nights off and slipping up. Now, are they overexerting themselves to get these wins? Also, no. And I do think that is a really big part of this discussion. And I do think that's part of where we have to go with this, because if the Cavs were on a track right now, like, I do think not all records are created equal. And if the Cavs had the same record they have right now, let's say they are 31-4, but Donovan Mitchell's playing 36 minutes a night, say that Tom Thibodeau is coaching the Cavs instead of Kenny Atkinson, and the Cavs have had the same results. They're 31-4, but all of their starters are playing more than 34 minutes a night, the way that all of the starters for the New York Knicks are. That's a thing that I would probably feel much differently about how this team looks if that were the case in Cleveland. But because Kenny Atkinson, I think one of the best things that he has done has been managing the minutes of this team, I feel differently about this start. I don't feel as if they're chasing wins. I feel as if they're beating teams because they're better. And there is a difference there. It's when I do feel like chasing wins is a bit of a characteristic of an overachieving team, right? And I don't think that this Cavs team is overachieving. I think every metric you look at says that they're overachieving. If they were 31-4 and their net rating was like +5, okay, I think you feel a little bit different, but it's nearly at +12. So I think that's something that you do have to factor into account when you have this type of conversation. And do the Cavs have stuff to prove in this regular season? Yeah, they absolutely do. When I say they shouldn't be chasing the all-time wins record of 73 or even gunning for 70 wins, I'm also not saying, yeah, this team should be satisfied winning 52 games. That's not true either. Like, this is a team that, as constructed and with the way that they've played so far, the goal should be, and I don't know what or if they even had a regular season wins goal before the season. I doubt it, because I think a lot of this season is predicated on what happens in the postseason, and I'll get to that in a second. But I do think that this should be a team that should be aiming to win somewhere between like 63 and 67 games. I think that's probably a good spot. That's a really difficult thing to do. That's a really, really challenging thing to do. But I do think that they have the capability to be a team that is special, that you think of as a team that's won 65 games. I believe entering the season, only 21 teams in NBA history have won 65 or more games in a season. And the Cavs, I think, have the opportunity to join that group because of how good they've been so far this year, because of the style of basketball they play, because of the talent on this roster, and because they're blowing teams out. Like, you can poke holes in their resume saying that they've played against teams that have not always had their best players, or maybe their best players have had off nights. And all that stuff is true, but I think it holds way less water when, okay, so Damian Lillard, just for instance, did not play the last time the Milwaukee Bucks were in town, but the Cavs beat the Bucks by 25 in that game. If Damian Lillard didn't play and the Cavs won that game by 3 and needed to be bailed out late, you feel a little bit differently about that game. Just like I think that game, even though Darius Garland down the stretch was awesome in the first Bucks, or the first win against the Bucks in Cleveland, I should say, I think that the win against the Bucks, because Giannis did not play in that game, I think the win against the Bucks without Dame is more impressive because they just absolutely blew the doors off of Milwaukee. And they've done that consistently. I mean, they've won 10 straight games going into Wednesday night showdown against the Thunder, and all 10 of those games have been by at least 10 points. But I don't think that they should be chasing this record, because I think that this season for the Cavs is not about regular season success. Do they have stuff to prove in the regular season? Absolutely. As I mentioned, this should not be a team that's satisfied with only winning 50-ish games. The goal for them should be somewhere between 63 and 67. I think that's a fair place for them to be. I also don't think that's something to where they're overexerting themselves to get there. I think that's something that's possible, but I don't think they need to sell out to get there. And I think that's a really important thing, because everything this season was always going to be about what happens in the postseason. And they have a lot to gain when the postseason arrives. They are going to be, as long as they stay healthy, they are going to be one of the title favorites. I don't know or think that they will necessarily be the consensus favorite in, like I would be surprised right now. I would be surprised if when the playoffs start, FanDuel has them as the favorite to win the finals. I think they'll be amongst the top 3, but I'd be surprised if they have the best odds of winning the finals. So they are going to have a lot to prove in the postseason, and that's what this should be about. The regular season for them should be about, yes, stacking wins, but building habits and being a very process-oriented team. And to the Cavs' credit, that is exactly who they have been so far. You listen to Donovan Mitchell speak after games, he's not talking about necessarily the fact that the Cavs win. He's talking about the fact that he's happy with how they are winning and how they are playing and how they are building good habits and getting better with each day that's passing. And that is almost, it's not more important than the results, because it's still a results-based sport, but it's pretty high up there when you consider where the Cavs are already at. If they were winning these games and not looking good doing so, you wouldn't feel as good about this team. I will say, if you are on the side of wanting to chase 70 wins or chase the wins record in the NBA, here's the ammunition that you need to say, okay, this is why it makes sense for the Cavs to go for it. Kenny Atkinson has managed the minutes so well for this team that no one is overexerting themselves to get wins. Go back and look at the 2015-16 Warriors. They won 73 games. But you know what? Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, all those guys were playing around 34, 35 minutes a night to make that happen. Donovan Mitchell's playing like 31 minutes a night. Now, you might say, oh, well, that's only a difference of 4 minutes. You're right in theory, but that's the type of thing that really does add up over time. Last year, Boston won 64 games and they won the title, and that's awesome for them. Jason Tatum played nearly 36 minutes a night. Jaylen Brown played 34 minutes a night. Would you rather the Cavs win 64 games, 65, 70 games because they overexert themselves in the regular season and then, as we have seen in the past, maybe run out of gas in the postseason? Or would you rather they win 62, 63 games, but the minutes are in a better place and this is a fresher team for the postseason? I know the answer the Cavs would pick because we see the results of that on a night in, night out basis where we're watching the star players not play a ton of minutes. The 65 win Houston Rockets team back in 2017-18. So LeBron's last year of his second tenure in Cleveland. They won 65 games, ran out of gas because those guys played a lot of minutes. James Harden played 35 minutes a night. Yeah, he won the MVP. It was awesome. That Rockets team was awesome, but they ran out of gas partially because they played so many minutes during the regular season. I will say I looked because I think 65 wins is probably the mark for the Cavs at this point. I think that's a fair mark to get to. 5 of the last 10 teams that won 65 or more games did not win the title. Now, there are teams that are worth talking about there. Like, obviously, the Golden State Warriors in 2016 won 73 games. They won 3 games in the finals, and then they blew a 3-1 lead against the Cavs. We all know that. So they're one of those. The San Antonio Spurs that year won 67 games. They obviously didn't make it out of the Western Conference. They lost in the second round to OKC that year. The Cavs are a team. Back in 2008, 2009, they won 66 games, lost in the conference finals. So there have been teams that have not made it to the finals. In fact, of the 5 teams that won 65 or more games and didn't win the title, 4 of them didn't even make the finals. The only team that did was the Golden State Warriors back again, 2015, 2016. So it's not something, to me, I don't think 70 wins should be something the Cavs are chasing. If they get there through the flow of the season and without having to overdo it and putting the regular season success ahead of postseason success, sure, that's fine. But ultimately, I think that we're probably looking at a 65-win team, and that gives them the best chance to win in the postseason. Another reason why the Cavs' chances of winning in the postseason have gone up lately, well, I think that's the play of Evan Mobley. We're going to talk about him shooting threes next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, so much more. You've got football this weekend. You've got basketball every night. What more can you need than heading on over to FanDuel Sportsbook? Because they've got everything that you're looking for. There are playoff games, both in college and in the NFL this weekend, starting on Thursday. I will certainly have my eye on Notre Dame as they take on Penn State this Thursday. But I was looking because in doing this conversation today about the Cavs chasing the wins, it's interesting to me. So their finals odds have not shifted lately. They're at plus 1,100, which is the 4th best odds behind Boston, OKC, and New York. But then I go on over to the Eastern Conference odds. And what are their odds? They are plus 500. They're tied with the Knicks for second best odds of winning the Eastern Conference. So maybe the value is actually going to be more so on winning the finals. Right now, I look at it as, okay, I think there are 4 teams that I view as really, really good teams. 3 of them are in the East. Only one of them is in the West. So there's a good chance OKC is going to be in the finals. But if the Cavs get there, I like that matchup a lot. And I will be talking about that more on tomorrow's edition of Locked On Cavs. But like I said, visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. Again, FanDuel.com. Make every moment, make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. So a big difference for the Cavs really in the last month or so has been Evan Mobley's shot selection. He's still taking around the same amount of field goal attempts. It's up a little bit, but not like a significant amount. But what is up is the number of 3-pointers that Mobley has been taking lately. He has expanded his game beyond the arc. He's shooting the ball still really well, but he's been shooting the ball really well all season from outside. What's different is the number of 3-pointers that Evan Mobley has been taking. So for the season, Evan Mobley is now up to 2.8 3-point attempts per game. That doesn't sound like a lot because it's not a lot of 3-point attempts. But the last 15 games the Cavs have played, Mobley's played 14 of them. He missed the one after turning his ankle against Miami Heat. And that even skews this a little bit because that is still obviously credited as a game played for Mobley, even though he only played 11 minutes. He didn't play anything close to his full minute allotment. But in Mobley's last 14 games that he's played, he is taking 3.9 3-point attempts per game. And he's shooting 48%. He's been not only shooting them at a much higher volume, but he's been making them too. He's making right around 2 threes a game. And that is something that I think opens up this Cavs offense a ton. Because let's say, I think Oklahoma City is a fine example of this. They're a team that right now, obviously, Chet Holmgren not going to be playing tomorrow night in that game. But that is something that is definitely worth looking into as far as how the Cavs match up with OKC. And I think Evan Mobley shooting threes is a really big part of that. Take a look at how he can stretch defenses now. That is something that has not necessarily been the case the entire time this season. I don't think that defenses really respected him the way that they should have respected him because they haven't had to defend him so far. And I think we are starting to see teams close out much more. They're starting to close out harder to Mobley than they were previously. They're starting to try and overextend the defenses, and it's made the Cavs so when Mobley's on the floor with Jarrett Allen at the same time, the Cavs have not had the ability to play 4 out for most of Mobley's career because he's not been respected. Now they can put him in the corner at times, but that had at certain points felt like a waste of his offensive talents. Now, if he's out there, he is somebody that I do believe is starting to create space in a way that he hasn't before. And I think that that has led to them, again, being able to play 4 out when Jarrett Allen is on the floor. And when Evan Mobley's at center, again, lineups that have absolutely destroyed opponents for the Cavs. When Mobley's at center, they can play 5 out. And it gives Mobley more space. It gives everybody on the floor more space. We probably need to see this for just a little bit longer before it's like a really real thing. There probably needs to be a little bit more time spent before like, okay, Evan Mobley, 3-point sniper, no doubt about it. Can't ever leave him open. Teams are still going to have to pick who they're going to defend hard. And there are a lot of options on this Cavs team offensively. They're going to have to choose between Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, whoever's on the floor at the 3, because those guys are all capable shooters too. But this just creates a matchup nightmare for opponents. That's what Evan Mobley has really done over the last month. And I even look at Sunday's game against Charlotte. Did he shoot the ball well? No. He had an off game. He had 17 points. I believe he was 6 of 13 from the field. It was just not the typical game that we're used to seeing lately from Evan Mobley. We're used to seeing more from Evan than what we saw on Sunday, but it's not a big deal. He's entitled to not having his best game every single day out there. But what did impress me was that he kept taking 3-pointers, that he kept shooting, that he wasn't shying away from it. Of the 13 attempts he took, and that's probably a number I'd like to see higher, like I would like to see him taking more than 13 shots in a game typically. But of those 13, 6 of them were 3-pointers. And Evan Mobley, before the month of December, had like 13 games ever where he had taken more than 3 3-pointers in a game. And now he's averaging more than that for over the last 5 weeks. He's been so much better. He's been, I think, so much more confident in shooting the basketball from beyond the arc. And I really do think it's shown. And I do think on Wednesday night specifically, that's a big boost for this matchup because OKC is a team that will often play smaller. Isaiah Hartenstein starting center for them. Obviously, Chet Holmgren is out. But with Hartenstein starting at center, he's going to be defending Jarrett Allen in all likelihood. That if I were, if I were the Thunder, that's how I would line up. Evan Mobley's going to have a smaller defender on him. So he is going to, at times, be able to overpower whoever, in theory. He should be able to overpower whoever's defending him. But when he's playing center and Hartenstein is on the floor, he's going to be able to pull him away from the basket, and that's going to open up things more for everybody else on the floor. I do think, and if you didn't listen to the Whip Around episode this week, I thought that Rylan Stiles really broke this down well with me, but the Cavs are a team that matches up so well with OKC. OKC plays small. The Cavs are going to play bigger, but the Cavs are a team that is fast. And typically when you're a big team, you're not also a fast team. But the Cavs have been, despite playing two bigs as often as they do, they found a way to be top 10 in pace in the NBA. And I think that is a combination that could give some problems to OKC. Now, we don't know how this game is going to play out. I'm very interested. I'm very excited to see what this matchup looks like. But I think Evan Mobley is going to be a big part of it, not only on Wednesday, not only next Thursday, but if these two teams meet in the finals, he's going to be a guy that is without question an X factor. And the three-point shooting that he's displayed lately makes him so much more valuable in this matchup and just for the Cavs overall. Now, it's Monday, so we're going to take a look at the trends because offensively, the Cavs have been great. Defensively, they've been really, really good. We're going to do that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. Basketball season is heating up, and there's no better way to get real money action while watching your favorite NBA stars than with PrizePicks. Whether you're a diehard fan or just love some friendly competition, PrizePicks makes it fun and easy to turn your basketball knowledge into cash. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. 1,000 times your cash. Think LeBron's going to score 30 points or more? Think when Luka Doncic gets back, he's going to have more than 8 assists? Probably to that one for sure. PrizePicks lets you make your predictions and put your money where your mouth is in just 60 seconds. With Prize Plus, this is important too. With PrizePicks Flex Play option, even if one of your picks doesn't hit, you can still double your money, right? Like, that's awesome. That's a great feature that PrizePicks has going for it. And when you hit, you get your money fast, sometimes as quick as 15 minutes. It's honestly the best way to keep the game exciting. Now is the perfect time to join too, because if you download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA, you get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. Don't need to win to get the bonus. It's guaranteed. Again, download the app, use code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. If you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. It's Monday, so what I want to start doing on Monday is look at the trends, how the Cavs have been playing last 10 games, last 15 games, full season, all that stuff, offensive rating, defensive rating, net rating. Let's go through it. So for the full season, the Cavs, and there are games being played Monday night that might affect this. So we'll see exactly how it shakes out. Maybe these numbers are a little bit out of date, but I don't think that they will be. Cavs, full season, offense, 121.3 points per 100 possessions. As you would imagine, that is the best mark in the NBA. Consistently, the Cavs have been the best offense in basketball nearly all year long. There was a little bit of a period where they slipped to second or maybe in third, but for the most part, they've been right at or near the top. The Boston Celtics are second. They are nearly a full 2 points behind the Cavs per 100 possessions. Boston is at 119.7. Again, Cavs are at 121.3. This is for the full season. Other side of the floor, defense. Cavs are allowing 109.8 points per 100 possessions. That's all the way up to 7th. I believe when I did this last week, the Cavs were at 9th. NBA.com site was not working when I went to pull this number for whatever reason, and like only with this number. But they have improved over the last week on the defensive end of the floor. Net rating is plus 11.5. They're outscoring teams by 11.5 points per 100 possessions. That is absolutely an elite number. They're second in the NBA, only behind OKC, but they're more than a full point better than Boston, who's in third place. So that's the full season. Let's look at the last 10 games. Cavs have won all 10. They've won all 10 by double digits. They've done it on both ends of the floor. So the last, I said for the full season, offensive rating was 121.3. Last 10 games, offensive rating 123.6. Far and away the best mark in basketball. They have been absolutely tearing teams apart offensively. The ball movement's been great. The shot making has been great. They just don't have bad nights on that end of the floor. Defensively, they are 5th in the NBA over every team's last 10 games, 107.6 points allowed per 100 possessions, a better mark than their full season. They're still really recovering from a bad month of November where they were 20th, but they've been so much better on the defensive end of the floor, really, and it extends past the last 10 games because you go to the last 15 games. Oh, by the way, the Cavs net rating in the plus, and keep in mind here too, OKC is technically on a 15-game winning streak. The last 10 games, the Cavs have a net rating of plus 16 over the last 10 games. They are outscoring teams by an average of 16 points per 100 possessions over the last 10 games. Oklahoma City has won their last 10 games too. They've won their last 15. Their net rating is second at plus 12.1. So the Cavs are neither a full 4 points better than OKC in each team's last 10 games. Last 15 games, Cavs offensive rating 121.5. So really right in line with what it's been all season. That is first in the NBA, as you might imagine. But here's what I'm impressed with. The last 15 games, the Cavs defensive rating is 106.9. That's second in the NBA. So the Cavs over their last 15 games, which is basically the start of December at this point, their last 15 games, they have been the best team on offense in the NBA and the second best team on defense. They have been an elite team on both ends of the floor. Now, because OKC has been such a monster defensively, their net rating in the last 15 games, of course, which they have won all of them, is better than the Cavs. But despite having a loss mixed in there, the Cavs have a net rating of plus 14.5 in their last 15 games. Really impressive stuff. This is a team that is trending in the right direction. It feels like they're getting better in whether I don't know that I can say they're getting better every single night because the team is destined to have an off night. But every stretch of basketball that you look at, it feels like the Cavs are getting better at something. Lately, it's been defense. This defense has really improved from what it was in November, and they look like a championship level team on both ends of the floor. I have zero doubts about that. I also have zero doubts that I appreciate you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today, making it your first listen every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Cavs Thunder tomorrow. I'll talk about it before the game right here on Locked On Cavs.